Well, it's lovely to welcome Mike Hall here with us today.
Thank you, Paul. It's lovely to be here.
Mike and I go back a long way, and Mike's down today primarily to pre-record a webinar for us. We have to pre-record a lot of the webinars because obviously we have to fit in with the guests who are coming along, and it's not always convenient for them to be here at 7:30 in the evening. And so Mike come down, he's pre-recording a webinar for us, mainly featuring some superb new PA1000 software that Mike's produced exclusively for us here at Keyboard World. And believe me, you don't want to miss that webinar because he has conjured up some amazing settings for this PA1000, and this is your little baby, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it is. This is. I know I've said this many times in the past. It's the only instrument that I've ever owned where I really look forward to turning it on and having a play. And I've had a lot of organs over the years, and obviously we've sort of moved on to this keyboard from two manuals, bass pedals, swell pedal, to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there are times when, if I want to play it like an organ, then I can. But if I want to play it as a conventional keyboard, then it's great in that respect as well. But it still gives me a real buzz. And I don't know any other instrument that did that after a little while. The novelty would tend to wear off a bit.
Yeah.
But it hasn't with this.
Because when I sort of first got to know you really well, you were working for Elka and you worked for Lowry and various other people, but most people will know you from the Elka days, and you used to have the organ as the central bit of your setup, but then I seem to remember this mass of keyboards and wires
It did
everywhere.
used to take a long time to set up. That was the only downside of that.
Yeah.
So you could get to a show and you think, have I got an hour now to set this thing up? Because that's how long it would take.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, when they would say, can you do another one for us, Mike, for another sort of 10 or 15 minutes encore, while you could see that the guy that looks after the place was looking at his watch.
The key jangler.
How long is he going to take to wind all this load up and then put it in the back of the car?
Yeah.
And it was that kind of situation, because I started in the years back in the 70s with the Elka X705, which still looks modern even today.
Yeah.
But then the Elka X30, which was the portable of the EP12 from Elka back in the mid 1980s. And then I remember adding an EM22 Elka expander on this side, and a EK22 keyboard, and an EK44 synthesizer and Elka. And then I did actually eventually move to add to that an M1, a Korg M1.
Which that was such an iconic synth, wasn't it? And it was groundbreaking when it came out.
I remember seeing it in Frankfurt at the big show in 1988. February it was, actually.
It's all right. Mike knows dates. He tells me what year it is. I just believe him.
And I remember we went to see this. They said, this is a revolutionary new keyboard. You've got to see this. And the thing, it actually spoke, which back then, 35, 36 years ago, we just stood there amazed. And I thought, I've got to have one of these things.
Yeah.
And I've still got it somewhere. And it was an amazing, incredible, I think the biggest most popular synthesizer ever.
Yeah.
The M1.
I think what's more amazing is, and it's probably a common misconception of people who don't know our trade very well, is they still look at this and think this is just a home keyboard that you sit and play bossa novas on in the corner.
Yeah.
These things now, as I think almost all our readers and viewers know, these are incredibly powerful machines. And there is more power in this small compact unit than there probably was in your 5 or 6 expanders plus the organ.
Far more. Yeah.
And we've now reached a stage where you could have only dreamt of these sort of sounds years ago.
You're absolutely right, because with those, when I had the organ and keyboards there and synthesizers here, what was really difficult, while you could get a lot of individual sounds, to get them all at the right time
Yes.
and at the same
Yep.
time, because back then, back in the 80s, there wasn't a way of hitting one button that controlled everything.
Yeah.
You could do certain things. I had certain things within the bottom keyboard with MIDI that would bring in certain sounds of one synthesizer, another part of the keyboard, another synthesizer.
Yeah.
But I had to physically set up manually all the different synthesizers to have something like this all rolled into one keyboard. Is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But with the power that it's got to get, I mean, I used to, I still do love the drawbar organ sound, but the power and the sound of this, the slow tremolo, the way it goes from slow to fast tremolo, chorale. Years ago, we could have only ever dreamed of what this thing does. It's unbelievable how it can do that. If you want a church organ, theatre organ, which we talk about, which I know you don't particularly like, but the capabilities are just endless, really.
They are.
Yeah.
And I think there's a. I'm probably going to use the wrong word here, but there's a sort of snobbery amongst people who play keyboards. To think, they think, oh yeah, I want to own a synth, because it's more hip, it's more trendy.
Yeah, it's
to
cool.
own a, yeah,
it's
cool.
Yeah.
But actually, many of those people who go off and buy what we would call a workstation, they don't have the playing ability to make maximum use. Whereas here, you have actually got a sort of condensed version of one of these high-tech workstations there.
Yeah.
Because you can do 16-track sequences on here. You can do quite intensive voice editing. You've got effects units that would have cost, and I'm not exaggerating, tens of thousands of pounds in studios.
Absolutely.
Years ago. It's now just, we take it for granted. It's built into these machines.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to do with Mike really is just give you a little insight into the way Mike works with keyboards, because the one thing I first noticed when we sort of first met up was Mike is absolutely brilliant at, I'm going to use the term, crafting sounds, because we all know we've got brilliant individual sounds, but you've just said it, it's that pulling them all together at the right time.
Yeah, to get it to gel.
Yeah.
It's so important. You can hear, and I've heard a lot of keyboards over the years where you can get great individual sounds. And then if you get an idea, think, well, hold on a minute, I want to get that sound to blend with that.
Yeah.
And often if you take what the manufacturer says, try that, yeah, it'll work. But then I'll say, it's not quite like a full orchestra.
Yeah.
So that's when we can start to play around and experiment. And that's what I tend to do. And I can spend a lot of time trying different things. Sometimes they'll work and sometimes they won't. So we start again and we'll try different things to try and get that end result.
Yeah. I mean, this might sound a stupid thing to say, but when people say to me, how do you know what sounds to put with what songs? Or what style should I choose? Actually, the simple answer is get yourselves on YouTube. I'm sure you all watch YouTube. Whatever song you're trying to do, type that title in, and I'll almost guarantee you'll come up with thousands of different versions of that song. You'll sure as heck find the original version, but then you might find an instrumental version. You might find an unusual version where somebody's used a totally different rhythm pattern. And that's where you need to pluck your ideas from. And I know you would agree with me.
Yeah.
If let's say you want to play a Dixieland piece, we can pick a Dixie rhythm on here.
You can.
And it's fantastic. It's, and you get to variation 3 and 4, and it's all singing, all dancing. You've got clarinets and trombones and everything riffing away in the background. But my brain says, and I'm sure Mike's the same, hang on, a Dixieland band, picture them in the corner of a little pub somewhere, this trad jazz band.
Yeah.
There's only one clarinet player. There's only one trombone player. So if our clarinet is riffing away in the background, we shouldn't be using that as our lead voice.
That's probably
because
true.
then falsified what we're trying to do. We've got two clarinet players all of a sudden in our Dixie band. So if the clarinet's screaming away in the left hand, automatically use a trumpet or a trombone in the right hand.
Yeah.
And try and just think things through logically. But then it's about getting the balance right, isn't it?
It is, yes.
And that's
It's not always easy to get that right, because you can often have one overpowering something else, and it's
Yeah.
just a question of trying to just listen to it, really listen to what you're doing. If you say, yeah, that's about right, play around with it.
Yeah.
Always experiment. I mean, years ago, I always used to say, in organ technology, if you find something that you like, write it down on
Yeah.
a bit of paper.
well, the beauty now, you
today,
can save it.
you can save it.
Yeah.
You've got all of this fancy technology, which
Yeah.
is so clever and it's so easy to operate,
Yeah.
to be able to store what you find.
Yeah, and there is a beautiful thing on Korg when I think we all know, and I'm not going to hide the fact, Korg has this reputation of being more difficult to use than other keyboards. But actually, my argument back is when you've created something you like and you want to save it on a Korg, it's one button. Because all you need to do is press and hold the songbook button for a couple of seconds. A screen will come up, ask you to give it a name. Yes, done.
It's done. Yeah.
You can't actually get any easier than pressing one button.
So it's got to the point where I look at it this way: it can be as simple
Yeah.
to play and operate, or as complex
Yeah.
as you want to make it.
Yeah. But sometimes if you've got something you've created and you're not 100% certain about it, save it. You can always delete it later if you think, you know what, that was wrong. I've done it better.
Start again. We'll start again.
Or you could go back in another day with a fresh set of ears and modify what you've already done. Because you will have done it, I've done it. You create something one day and you think, yeah, brilliant that was.
Yeah.
And you go to bed with a smile on your face. You get up the next morning and in the cold light of the next day you play it and you think, actually, it's rubbish. it's nothing like I thought it was. And you'd either go in and modify it or scrap it and start again.
It's very true.
And it depends what frame of mind you're in.
It is, yeah.
What mood you're in that day
Yeah.
as to how it will
Yeah.
turn out. So Mike has created this software, and I can't stress enough the number of man hours that have gone into making this, because I know Mike of old. He will spend a day getting a trumpet sound exactly as he wants it. Forget the rest of the registration. He'll spend a day just on that one sound. I know you will.
I do work a bit like that. I
Yeah.
like to get things right in my mind so
Yeah.
that it's as good as I can possibly get.
Yeah.
And I think it's just important to be able to do that. I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
One of the jobs I used to do years and years and years ago within the organ world
Yeah.
was working with setting up registrations years ago, before we had sampling technology, and we had to work utilising capacitors and resistors to alter the sounds by, we need a bit more top on that saxophone. Then we had to we spent hours getting
Yeah.
the sound as near as we could with that kind of technology. So I still utilise that sort of frame of mind while we've got this very clever high resolution sampling for a saxophone. It always takes me back to my dad, who played saxophone, clarinet in the big bands. And I can remember that he would say, I'm using a soft reed for this particular song. And you'd hear that sort of sound in his vibrato. And he used to have a really slow vibrato. He used to play a Selmer alto sax. And I always remember he had a Boucher saxophone, beautiful sound, but it wouldn't carry in a big dance hall, whereas the Selmer would.
Yeah.
It would cut through. So I would push the mid frequencies on the graphic equalizer when I'm setting the sounds up just a bit more top end, and that way it will highlight that particular alto sax. I can perhaps add a bit of the that kind of sound to give you certain sort of thing. It's the same with the organ voices. You've got some terrific organ sounds in here already done for you. What I've done is to just tweak them a breathe on them a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
if you like,
Yeah, yeah.
to give you that sort of sound that I'm looking for.
Yeah. So what we'll do you want to just give us maybe 3 examples of
Well,
some sounds that you've crafted and
if I
created?
put my headphones on, so I
Yeah.
can't hear you very well now, but I
Yeah.
can hopefully hear this. If we take something like this, which was a sort of an organ swing sort of thing,
Yeah.
where you've got that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
What I like about that, okay, it's a bit jazzy, it's a bit swingy. Not everybody's into that sort of sound, but I was after that big drawbar organ sound with the fast Leslie sound, so I can get that. That screaming sort of. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just love that sort of. It's
Yeah.
the same thing if we did it on there. We've got. I'll put these on again so I can hear what I'm doing. So we've got. And what we're using here, for example, we just that little bit of key click. And you'll notice that what we've got is that little bit of tail end reverberation, which just, we've altered that. And
Yeah.
it just rings nicely.
Yeah, yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a matter of being able to utilise those different
Yeah.
drawbar combinations to
Yeah.
emulate the big old drawbar organs from yesteryear.
Yeah, yeah. And all these sounds that Mike's using are part of this software package, aren't they, that you put together? So
they're just there.
he's
Yeah.
using that. Now, the other thing that made me smile was when PA5X, which is over that side of the studio, first came out. I rang Mike up and over the airwaves, I played him the new cello sample, which was blowing us all away.
Yeah, yeah.
It is an incredible sample that on the 5X, and I think he was a little bit jealous, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I was. I thought,
So-
I can't believe this. I can't believe it. Look at this. This incredible new PA5X comes along
Yeah.
with a cello on it that is just, well, I haven't got that.
No, but what Mike did, he set himself the challenge of creating a new cello sound for the PA1000. And I have to say, with the greatest respect to Korg, the one you've created is a much nicer end result than the factory cello.
I'm quite happy with it. It took a while, and the PA5X cello's great. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I thought, it's a bit unfair. This is. I want something a bit closer. So
Yeah.
what I've
Give us
done,
a little demo of it.
Well, this is just the straightforward cello. It's not just a cello. It's mixed with.
Yeah. That's a lovely sound.
I'm
So
pleased
the
with
cello
that.
is the prominent voice, but you've just put those other
They're just-
voices behind
yeah,
it.
and
Just,
it makes to me it just works. I think.
yeah. Okay, and you've got a big band sound, which I heard you use earlier, and I said we've got to feature that.
Well, with the big band sound, we just come out of that and we go to big band. There's a whole variety. But
there was one particular sound with the screaming brass in it.
What I wanted was this. A few months ago, I love big bands, I really do, and I went to see the Nick Ross Orchestra at a local theatre. Oh, what a sound! The first thing is, which is so obvious, is that you've got, as you sitting at the stage, and I was on the front row, you've got basically 5 saxes were over there. You've got the trumpets and the trombones over that side. So the first thing I've done is to recreate a lot of the sounds so that certain prominent woodwinds, saxophones are more to the left.
Yeah.
I've got some in the middle, some over to the right with the brass and the trumpets. And then you get these chords where you get ba 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 ba, wow, this screaming trumpets where you've got this that kind of If you put a bit of rhythm with it, you're gonna that sort of thing. And it's difficult to hear it from.
That's great, and you're bringing in the shake on the brass.
Yeah, by
using
doing
the
that,
joystick down there.
The joystick. Yeah.
It's brilliant. I tell you what, I've had a great day here with Mike, because actually it's reminded me how good some of these keyboards are. And we're not here just to talk about Korg. If you look at things like the Yamaha PSR SX 900, which is the Yamaha's equivalent of the PA 1000, they are incredible instruments, but we tend to focus naturally, I suppose, on flagship models a lot of the time. But and when you're in the trade, you're guilty of forgetting just how good some of these intermediate range products are.
We often think of, as you say, the flagship model. And in my Elka days, back in the 1970s, when we had an organ called the 707, we had the really small range. And my boss, dear old Nando, he would often say, well, get to know the really small organ and see what they do. So I remember the Orla Prestige, which was £500 or £600 instrument. Now you think, well, £500 or £600, but organs back then, they were a lot of money, relative to the buying power of what money would do for you in those days. And I remember playing on the Orla Prestige, and to see what you could really get from it. And I thought, oh, that's a great little organ. But often people would just think, I'm going to get the big one.
Yeah.
And it's the same, I think, with the keyboard, because so much of the PA4X from this machine is in here. You think, well, this is such a great instrument. It's not the top of the range, but it ain't far off.
No. And if there's any dealers reading or watching, we're not trying to stop people buying the top of the range, I promise you. I think what we're saying is, if you can't afford the top of the range, then take a step down the ladder, have a close look at them, because often they have the bulk of the features of the flagship model. And actually, in many cases, more than enough features for most people that want to use at home. So, Mike, it's been a pleasure having you. It's
been great
sitting chatting with you. Can't wait to get rid of you, to be honest.
That's all right, not a problem.
But I thought what we'll do is we'll just swap the cameras round, and then if you'd like to finish off with a little piece of music for us, I'm sure we'll have you back.
Well, that would be nice to do that. It's always lovely to
Thanks for doing the software, and watch out for Mike's webinar. You'll all be informed as and when that's ready to go live.
Brilliant.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks very much.
Just give us 2 minutes, and Mike will play you a little piece of music.
Great stuff. Thanks.